We're here in the South Canterbury Museum in Timaru, and the South Canterbury Museum has a focus on the nature and history of the South Canterbury district. That's basically between the Rakitata River to the north, down to the Waitaki, from the sea up to the Alps. I think the river's important because of its place in nature. It helps define South Canterbury. That's where South Canterbury starts, as soon as you cross that river. It's a wonderful natural resource that has so many biodiversity values. It links us to our landscape, and it's part of our history, Māori heritage and European heritage and present-day history. It helps define our sense of place. You had overland exploration by people who were employed to explore in the 1840s, and at that stage, temporarily, the name Alford had been given to the Rangitata River. So it was called the Alford River for a short period of time, but eventually the Rangitata or Rakitata name stuck. In the 1850s, settlement began in earnest when run holders who had purchased or were leasing land from the government came south, and often with herds of sheep, to take up their run holdings either in the hinterland or down on the coastal plains. And that's when we first see permanent European residents in this area. For local settlers as they arrived, the Rakitata was an obstacle and a hazard. Getting across the Rakitata was very, very difficult. It depended on river levels. There were several crossing points that had been identified, but even they could change with the rivers changing, being a braided river. There were efforts to make safe crossing points and also to establish ferries. These were often wiped out or damaged by flooding, and the need for permanent bridges was established. And in the 1870s, bridges were established at Arundel to the north and down where the current bridge is on State Highway 1 at a cost of just over £9,000. There were efforts made in the early 20th century to establish irrigation schemes with water races, and that freed up more land to be more highly productive, particularly for growing crops, but also growing pasture for grazing. And so this area was primarily sheep country and crop growing agriculture. Well, one of the big issues with the river, of course, was its propensity to flood. Building in riverbank protection was a major effort to ensure the safety of people and land, and not always successfully. Because we are living here, we're always going to affect the rivers, and the rivers will always affect us. But I think recent efforts to re-establish biodiversity values are important, recognising the fact that it'll never be the same as it once was, but we can hopefully mitigate what the effect that humans have on our rivers and the effect that our rivers have on our human activity.